Okay, July Q&A round 2. All right, Dale asks, have you ever used a projector to duplicate a painting? And also he asks, have you ever used a watercolor field sketch for a studio oil painting? So number one, have I used a projector? I've used a projector once to do a large cityscape, 36 by 36. I did a sketch first, a small sketch, and then projected it onto the canvas, and I used vine charcoal to sketch out the, just sort of map out where the buildings and the streets and that sort of thing were. I don't even think I used that sketch. I think I just dusted it off and went back to my typical method, which was just estimating where the stuff was and painting it in burnt sienna as usual. So I just did not like the process. I feel like part of the process for me, like part of the warm-up, is actually looking at the, you know, and just kind of feeling my way around, and even if my initial lines are off, just sketching it out and then correcting. I'm already engaging in a way that I think is really valuable. It's like the painting starts right off the bat. I'm just in it. And so I don't like using a projector, but I do not judge. If a projector works for you, I'm totally fine with that. I don't think it's cheating or anything. You're still gonna have a lot of work to do, and you still, you know, if that just gets the big shapes in the right place for you, especially on a large canvas, then by all means go for it. But I find that ultimately it kind of slowed me down, and yeah, I didn't engage right away the way I like to with a painting. So that's been my experience with a projector. The second part of the question, have I ever used a watercolor field sketch for a studio oil painting? I have not done that. I've not done any watercolor at all, except when I was a little kid. And in fact, as far as using field sketches, I wouldn't even call my plein air paintings field sketches, because I usually try to finish them out there and come up with something that I like, even when it's a small painting, like an 11 by 14. I have not had much luck taking 11 by 14 or small field sketch and turning that into a successful large studio oil painting. Most of the time I am not satisfied with the results, so I just try to go back to the location and paint on location under similar conditions using a bigger canvas or panel. So no, I haven't really had much luck with that, although I know it's a tradition to use field sketches for bigger studio work. Hasn't really worked for me. George asks, have you ever used Windsor Newton Griffin Alkyd paint? Alkyd is like a fast drying medium. I believe in the case of the Windsor Newton Griffin Alkyd paint, it's a paint that already has this alkyd mixed into it, so the paint typically dries like overnight. I have not used that. I like to kind of have the choice with my paints, whether I want it to dry quickly or dry over a longer period of time. Like if I want to leave it open or wet, like longer, I will use a traditional linseed based medium. And then if I want it to dry quickly, I will use Liquin, also by Windsor Newton, which will dry the painting in 24 hours. So for me, I have not used a paint that actually has the alkyd mixed into it, just because I like to have that option. Francis asks, how do you deal with burnout? That's a good question. I don't tend to get burnt out very often. I tend to, when I am burned out, it's typically from doing too many commissions. You guys probably know that. So I try to limit the commissions I do so I don't burn out. If I'm just painting for my own fun and adventure, rarely do I get burnt on that process. But if I do, for some reason, you know, start getting burnt out and losing inspiration, oftentimes I'll give myself an assignment, like either go out and paint with a super limited palette, maybe 3 colors in white, you know, maybe not even like specific primary colors, maybe like, you know, like a Zorn palette. Or I can say, okay, go out and paint something that's red, or, you know, or go out and try to do something that I, you know, paint a subject that I don't normally paint. So giving myself a challenge or an assignment can help. The other thing can be just walk away from it for, you know, painting altogether, and just get into music, maybe write some songs, play guitar and stuff for a couple days, or however long it takes, go surfing, go hiking, whatever. You know, so breaks I find really help. I used to fear that if I took a break, I'd lose my polish, you know, and I'd lose my skills. I found that that's not the case. Taking breaks can be really good. Oftentimes I'll come back and just do a great painting, you know, after taking like, say, a week off or something. All right, Steven asks, do I prep my paintings before painting over dry paint? So in other words, if I've let my painting dry and I'm gonna come back and rework something or add to it, do I do anything to the painting, or do I just start painting on it? I just start painting. I know there's a process called oiling out where you take some linseed oil and you'll kind of, you know, sort of wipe down the painting with a thin film of linseed oil, or some people will use retouch varnish, the stuff that I, you know, use before sending my paintings out into the world. They'll spray that in order to get the painting looking wet, so that you can match colors more accurately. So oiling out, I think, does that. It also makes for a nice surface for the paint to be applied to, as opposed to a dry painting. But no, I just go out of dry painting. I never do anything other than just, I just go at it. Okay, Marnie asks, what are some of the things you are grateful for this year? I have not thought about these questions. I just wrote them down and I'm jumping in. I'm always grateful for friends and family, always. Grateful for you guys that you're interested in what I'm doing here, and watching these videos and commenting and engaging. So I am grateful for that. I mean, I'm grateful that I'm able to wake up every day and do what I do. That's a real gift, I feel. There's times when it's really challenging, as you know, but overall I'm really happy and feel very fortunate that I get to do this. I'm grateful for California and living here, even though there's a lot of challenges here as far as like the expenses and stuff, but I'm always sort of blown away by the beauty here and feel very grateful that I'm able to live here and paint here. The list goes on and on. I'm very grateful for lots of things. This video could go on for hours. Greta asks, do you think it's important to keep a consistent style and medium? In other words, like if you're an artist, to keep your style consistent and then paint in one medium, like say oil or watercolor or whatever. And then also, do buyers care who painted the painting if they really like it? And does being like well-known or famous artists increase sales? I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I'll tackle the first question first. Do I think it's important to keep a consistent style and medium? I do think that it actually helps to stick with one medium when you're putting your work out there, but I could be wrong. Like I always felt like I'm just gonna put oil paintings out there. That's the only kind of art that I'm gonna kind of promote. And so I don't have a lot of experience with it. It just felt right to me, like not to be, you know, putting out drawings and prints, like say block printing and all this, all things I'm kind of interested in. I do think it can help to focus possibly in the beginning, especially, but I don't know for sure. It just felt like that felt right to me. So I just thought, all right, I'm just gonna be an oil painter. That's it. Keeps it, you know, kind of stay focused. As far as the style goes, I mean, the way I think of style for me is there's some paintings that are maybe looser and some are tighter. And I feel like, you know, the ones that are more expressive may feel like they have a different style than the ones that are maybe a little more controlled. Here's my attitude about that. I feel like that what you want to do, like oftentimes the subject matter will determine the style in a way. I think it's always going to have your fingerprint on it, even if, like, say, for example, you do paint something that's maybe tighter and something that's looser. Chances are it's still going to look like you. So I don't tend to worry about that. I let the subject matter dictate the style more or less. And I've even had, like, you know, a gallery show where there's, you know, a bunch of paintings and some are super loose and some are more controlled or more tight. So for me, that hasn't really been an issue. You know, it hasn't affected sales. You'll have sales from both, and I've never had feedback saying like, oh, I like this style particularly and not that. It hasn't really come up. Maybe because what we see as a stylistic difference, your average person may not notice as much. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't worry about it. Again, I like to let the subject matter dictate, you know, the style to a certain extent, primarily in how finished what level of finish I take the painting to. All right, so let's see, do buyers care who painted a painting? Does being a well-known or famous artist increase sales? And I'm kind of paraphrasing here. I do think among some art buyers, especially super high-end, expensive auction pieces, definitely who painted it. If the person is famous or has a name, I think it does make a difference. I think in most cases, if a person likes what they see, they're gonna buy it. And that's the thing you should focus on, is just doing work that you're proud of and you really like. And if you really like it and you're proud of it, chances are somebody else is gonna like it as well. So I don't think in the sort of even like mid-range price range, I don't think it really matters. All right, so that's it for this Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm gonna get back to work, but I'll see you in the next video.